All right, so today I'm going to be walking you through the process we use to update old/underperforming SEO blog content. All right, so old content really is kind of subjective, right? It's pretty relative to your publishing rate or your publishing velocity, how old your site domain is, things like that, right? Typically, we don't tend to update content until about the 4 to 5 month mark. And that's really only if it gets stagnant, or obviously if it starts dropping as well, then obviously we'll update that as well. Also, if we publish content and then in the next 90 to 120 days, it's not really where we want it. It's not anywhere near page 1. Obviously, we'll give it some updates as well. Really to push it onto page 1 so we can actually get some value out of it. All right. So, like I said, this is the process we use to update blog content, whether it's underperforming or just old. Right. Google likes fresh content, so old is essentially underperforming for the essentially the same thing right now. Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through this. It's about 4,000 words. So how to identify which blogs to update? 2 methods here, one using Ahrefs and another one using Google Search Console. 36-point on-page optimization checklist to figure out why it's not ranking. The exact process we use to update the old/underperforming content, and then also using Search Console to get quicker wins. So let's get into it. All right, so first things first, identifying which blogs are underperforming, right? If you are an e-commerce site owner or a content/niche site owner, or really, you run a website and you publish blog content regularly, odds are you're checking analytics or Search Console or Ahrefs or SEMrush or whatever it may be pretty regularly, right? So which pages are getting the most traffic, which keywords are driving the most traffic. That's all good stuff. You're also probably, unfortunately, very familiar with which pages are not, driving so much traffic and which keywords, you're struggling to rank for, right? So that's what we're going to address here. Okay, so it should be painfully obvious at this point which pages are not helping you at all, right? Maybe you've, changed the meta title, you've rewritten things, whatever the case may be, but nothing seems to work, right? The pages are somewhere around, page 3 or 4 in the SERPs, or maybe they're not even that close, right? Or, you're at the edge of page 2, can't crack onto page 1. So this is what this is for, right? So if you published a blog last week and it's not on page 1, this video is not for you, okay? Even if you published it within the last 30, 60 days, it's still probably not for you unless you run, a massive publishing site like Forbes or, CNN or something like that, right? Google takes a long time to index pages, right? So this video is primarily based on the e-commerce process we use. So this is for e-com brands, content site owners, and bloggers who published blogs at least 60 to 90 days ago and are not yet seeing the results they want. Okay, like I said, if you're in the trenches of your own company, writing blog content consistently, whether it's once a day, 2-3 times a week, whatever the case may be, which ones your winners and losers are. Obviously, we want to have more winners than losers, so the goal is to take your losing blog posts and turn them into winners. Okay. It's not enough to just have an idea of which ones are not doing great. We need to identify and determine exactly which ones are not winning so that we can fix those. Okay. So I'm going to show you 2 methods on how to do this. First, we're going to use Ahrefs. So everyone should have Search Console set up. So Ahrefs, this is like kind of the quick and dirty version. If you're paying for Ahrefs, it's fine. But the second method I'm going to show you through Search Console is definitely the more recommended and more accurate version of this method. So open up Ahrefs and enter your site's domain into Site Explorer, click on Top Pages, and then set the following filters/limitations, okay? Your desired country, most of our clients are in the US, we have some in the UK and Australia as well, but if you're in whatever country you may be in and whichever country you're looking to drive traffic through, is what you should set it to, okay? URL. Shopify is really convenient on the fact that all of their blog URLs contain /blogs, right? So I'm going to set the filter so that only the blog URLs are showing. Now, if you're on WordPress or maybe even Squarespace, where you can customize the entire slug, it may just be yourdomain.com/ the actual blog URLs, like domain.com/blog title. Whereas on Shopify, it is domain.com/blogs/ blog name, and then like the blog category name, and then /blog title, right? So if you're using Shopify, super convenient. If you're using a consistent blog URL slug, again, also super convenient. So if yours is like domain.com/blog and then /blog title, right, you can obviously just throw in the blog as the filter, right? Now, whatever the case may be for you, obviously you've got to kind of sort that out. But the next important thing here is setting the position, right? So we want to set the position from 8 to pretty much infinity, right? So 8 to really 100, right? So just fill in the first box there, and it'll just say from position 8 to, and then blank, okay? So now it's going to show you is all of the blogs that currently don't rank for a keyword higher than position 8 all the way to position 100, right? So end of page 10. If you're not in the top 3 spots, maybe 5, depending on the keyword, it's pretty unlikely you're going to drive significant traffic with that blog. So the goal here by setting these filters is obviously to get the country right. We don't care about countries we're not targeting, and we only care about the blogs, right? And then the goal is to really take these blogs that are currently ranking in position 8 or worse and put them into the top 3 to 5 spots. You'll notice there's a gap, obviously, between by what I was saying about 3 to 5, and then obviously there's a gap between the 6 and 7 position. Those positions fluctuate quite a bit. But really that's like, we want to set position 8 and up, right? If they're in 6, 7, we make updates to them, like, yeah, they're going to move, but we're focusing on the ones that are really not doing anything right now, okay? So stick with me here. So here's one, the example I use in this one, and I use throughout the entire video here. This website has about 47-ish blogs that don't rank above position 8 for their given keyword in their given country, okay? I say 47-ish because in Ahrefs, it's possible they rank above position 8 for another keyword, or they rank for 2+ keywords, neither of which is above position 8. So I set these exact same filters. Might be zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so like you can see these 2 arrows, right? Like obviously the URLs are blacked out to protect, the example here, or the privacy of the domain. The same URL is obviously shown here twice, right? So like one of these keywords gets 4,300 searches a month, and then this one gets 200 searches a month. I know the keywords, they're very similar, but obviously the same URL is being shown twice. So there are 47 pages, but like if I were to go and examine all the duplicates in this row, it's very likely it's probably closer to 40 unique URLs, okay? So that's why I say it's the quick and dirty version, all right? Because the data is not entirely accurate, and again, you're using Ahrefs traffic and rankings estimates, all right? So if you want in Ahrefs, if you do this version, you can hit the export button right here. That way you can work with it in Sheets or Excel, whatever you prefer to do. But here's what we're going to do now. So whether you're working in Sheets or Excel, or you're just going to, kind of run it on the fly through Ahrefs, I guess, for lack of a better word, you're going to start with the first URL, copy and paste it into the Ahrefs Site Explorer, okay? It will list all of the keywords that particular blog ranks for up to position 100, right? So if it ranks position 1 all the way to position 100, it'll show you every single keyword it ranks for, right? Again, I recommend setting the country filter, because if you run, for example, your brand is based in the US and you don't sell internationally whatsoever, or you can't monetize traffic outside the country, you don't care about, for example, Australian traffic or Canadian traffic, right? So important to set that up. Now, like I said, it's going to give you this gigantic list of keywords. Hopefully it's a big list. It'll obviously depend on, how the content's performing already. But what you need to do now is, now that you have all of those keywords, assuming they're relevant, what you need to do is then take that list of keywords and you, again, put it in Sheets or Excel or whatever you want to use, or go directly from Ahrefs. And then you'll want to then add those words into your existing content, right? So let's say, you have a keyword. Let's just say, the example is you're writing about, like, what's the best, or like when to take protein powder after a workout, okay? And maybe, there's a keyword somewhere in like position 60 or 70, right? And it's like, I don't know, the example is, the keyword is, best, should I take pre-workout, 30 minutes after a workout, or 60 minutes after a workout, or whatever it may be, right? If you don't have that in your article right now, what you can then do is, that's a question, so that's kind of an easy example, right? You can just make that like an H3 or like an FAQ at the end of your blog and add it in there, right? And now you've given more context to Google about very closely related keywords, and really, you're going to improve the ranking as a result of adding that context, okay? So, like I said, add these keywords to your context. It is literally that simple. Add them to your H2s, H3s, body content, image, alt text, wherever, you can find them relevant. The goal here is not to like totally rewrite the article. It's just to fit in existing words, or fit in keywords that you're kind of almost starting to rank for, but you're not yet. So really to fit those into your content, and then hopefully push those rankings up, right? Start with the keyword. I would work backwards, right? So the way Ahrefs will put it out is it'll show you your highest driver of traffic keyword first. and then it'll go down, right? So the last keyword on the list will be like, in theory, a keyword that ranks in position 100 that does not drive any traffic, right? Start with keywords that rank in the 8 to 15 spot. These will obviously have a greater impact, right? You're in the 8 to 15 range. You should update these keywords first because you have a higher likelihood of moving from position, let's say 12 to position 9, which is really page 2 to page 1, than you do of trying to move a keyword from position like 62 to page 1, right? Like that's going to take obviously far longer. So 8 to 15 are more like low-hanging fruits, right? Okay, work your way down, including those other keywords, even if they're in the 60 to 100 range. Okay, they all matter. Again, just a disclaimer here, Ahrefs is third-party data. Many of the keywords in like positions 40 to 50 and up will be completely irrelevant to you. That's just, that's just the case of the data, right? Like, unfortunately, some of those keywords are going to suck. Obviously, don't just add those keywords for the sake of moving down the list in order. Like, if it doesn't make any sense topically to your content, just skip it, okay? Okay, now moving on. Google Search Console is the recommended method here, all right? So Ahrefs is fairly accurate in terms of rankings, but search volume and estimated traffic metrics are usually off. I know it's definitely the most accurate of, between SEMrush and like Ubersuggest, but the crawl data, crawls every couple of days depending on the keyword, and it's third party, right? Like it's not Search Console data. Ahrefs data is obviously not as accurate as Search Console stuff. So the way we're going to do the exact same task. We're going to find the relevant keywords that each blog is ranking for. It's going to be pretty similar, but the keywords are going to be far more accurate and far more relevant, all right? So the first thing we need to do is look for blog posts that have a decent high amount of impressions, but a low amount of clicks, okay? So basically, in the Ahrefs method, what we did is we essentially identified blogs that were not ranking higher than position 8. We're going to call those low performing, right? So in the case of Search Console, the equivalent or parallel to that is essentially finding blog posts that we've written that have a fair to high amount of impressions, but a low amount of clicks. So basically it's being shown a lot in a lot of, either like maybe it's 9 or 10 of the SERP, and it's being shown a lot in terms of the impression, but it's not getting clicked on, or it's showing up for like a very wide range of keywords and just not getting clicked on, okay? So that's the first step, all right? Identifying those pages in Search Console. So open up your Search Console, click on Performance, and then Search Results. Again, if you're in Search Console daily, this should be second nature to you. Let's work within the last 6 months of data. Like I said, we tend to update content every 4 to 6 months anyway, so this is a pretty good date range. Click Date above the graph and set the range to the last 6 months, then click Apply. It should look like this, right? You should have search type web, date last 6 months, okay? We're only interested in blog posts for now. Again, I'm working with a Shopify brand in this example, so it's easy to filter pages by the /blogs slug. Again, if it's something, if you run in WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or whatever, right? Maybe you have a default blog slug before your blog title. If not, what you'll need to do is essentially run this exact same sample with high impressions and low clicks, and then filter out manually by blog posts, okay? Click plus new and then select page from the drop-down menu. Again, I'm adding this filter just for the blog, so that's what this is doing. Now what Search Console is going to show me is only going to be blog posts, right? And again, so only going to show blog posts. Now we're going to click on the Pages tab. So you see this Pages tab here. It defaults to queries. We're going to switch over to Pages. And then we're going to click the 3 horizontal lines to apply a filter, okay? So this is going to come up. What we're going to do now is check the box that comes up. We're going to click on check the box for clicks. A new text box will appear, or a new box will appear. Click the drop down and select smaller than and enter 100 in the text box, and then click done. So now what it's going to do is going to show you blog pages or blog posts that have less than 100 clicks over the course of the last 6 months, okay? Unless you published it last week, or you're a new website, totally new, you bought the domain in the last 6 months and you're just starting to publish. Obviously that's not a major deal, but if you've been here's the example I use, right? Less than 100 clicks per page, for a page is not enough over the course of 6 full months. So if you published a blog over 6 months ago and it's getting less than 100 clicks a day, at best, if it's getting 100 clicks or 100 clicks over the last 6 months, that's less than 0.56 clicks per day. Obviously, that's not enough to drive any significant traffic or revenue to your site, okay? So now we've got the low performing blogs identified. Now we want to work backwards in terms of pretty much like lowest hanging fruit or easiest wins, so to speak. So what we're going to do is click impressions to sort the rows by number of impressions from highest to lowest. From there, we can start to analyze the data. So basically what we have now after the filter and the sorting is we have pages that have very few clicks, but comparatively a high number of impressions, right? So I think in one of the examples for the brand I'm working with in this example is that it had like 12,000 impressions, but it had less than 100 clicks for the last 6 months. So obviously that's not ideal. I don't know what the math is on that off the top of my head, but the click-through rate is like far below 1%, right? So obviously looking to increase that. But basically what we can do now with this information is if a page has a high number of impressions, but a low number of clicks, we can assume, and I don't like to assume much in SEO, but it's on the right track to ranking for some keyword. Maybe it's not your target keyword, but it's on track to rank somewhere. It's just not good enough quite yet. All right. So depending on how ambitious you're feeling, you'll want to identify a number of these pages or a number of these blogs so you can update each of them and earn more traffic. Right now, if you've published 100 blogs, if this list after filtering and sorting under 100 clicks over the last 6 months, and you have 100 blogs in this list, my recommendation would not be to do all 100 at once. I would do like the first 5 or 10, update them, which I'll show you how to do in a bit, and then wait, and then move through them. Maybe it's a week by week you update you update 10 every week, or maybe you update 2 a day, or whatever the case may be, right? But definitely don't just turn off your new publishing, but you do want to keep updating old content and underperforming content, obviously. Okay. So we usually update 10 to 15 at a time for the brand. Obviously, this is going to vary depending on the publishing frequency and amount of existing content. You can obviously export this data into a spreadsheet to add notes, keep track of updates, if you're running a full team, like which writers are working on what's the status of it, is it done, is it in progress, is it in editing, is it in review, whatever the case may be. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to get into all that process, but whether you export the data, work directly in Search Console, or write them down on a piece of paper, which I've definitely done before, it doesn't matter, right? Basically, you have a list of blogs now that need to improve, so we're going to do that. Okay. So this is the on-page checklist we use for blog content, okay? This is the very first thing I would check to make sure you have checked all of these boxes, or at least in the range of 30 plus of them, okay? So what you can do now is, let's get into the checklist, all right? So you can use a checklist for new content, underperforming content, or just old content that has not been updated in a while, all right? So if you published a blog 12 months ago, it was crushing it, and now it's kind of flopped, run through this checklist again, or for the first time maybe, and then give it a facelift, right? So first things first, basic location for on-page keyword placement, all right? So you want to make sure your target keyword is in the following locations: the blog title, the URL slug, the meta title, meta description, at least one H1, and at least one H3 or a close variation of it. Introduction paragraph, ideally in the first 50 to 75 words. If you can get it in the first 2 to 3 sentences, that's pretty good as well. Several times throughout the content, naturally, obviously we're far past keyword stuffing, so naturally throughout the content. If you're a topic expert, you shouldn't even have to think about keyword density or stuffing, right? You should just be mentioning it casually as you walk through the content. Conclusion paragraph as well, right? And then this is not so much a keyword placement, but an on-page element that pretty much we fit in the on-page optimization section. Are you within plus or minus 200 words of the average word count for the SERP? Typically, I recommend looking at the top 3 to 5 results. If you want to do all 10, obviously you can. But if the top 3 results, for example, are an average of like 1,500, and results 4 through 10 are an average of 1,000. Obviously, you don't want to just be on the first page. You want to be in the top 3. So obviously, you want to be closer to that 1,500 mark, which in this case will be somewhere between 1,300 and 1,700 words. Okay, so that's that. Links. So this is going to cover both backlinks and internal links on your site. So did you write the blog and is it now an orphan page? So basically that means if there's no internal links pointing to it at all, that blog is never going to rank no matter how great the content is, okay? If there are internal links pointing to the page, how many are there? If there's only like 1 or 2 and there's room for more, you want to build those. So obviously that kind of leads into the next point. Are there any missed internal link opportunities? There are a few tools out there to do this. If you run Ahrefs, it has internal link opportunities as one of their tabs. It's okay. It definitely has some good ideas, but I know for a fact it does count. Like if you have customer reviews on your product page and they use, for example, your target keyword, it will suggest that you link from that review to whatever the target page is. And obviously that's not going to be possible nor ethical, so to speak. All right, so that's that. But you'll have to, there's another way I'm going to show you down below on how to use a Google operator to find those exact same internal link opportunities, and that one's actually free. Okay, are there any backlinks pointing to it? Did you build any internal links from it to your money pages? All right, so we talked these first 4 points about links pointing to it, but we also want to have links pointing from it to the money pages. They're going to help us actually make money. Okay, does it have any images? If so, do they add to the content value or do they extract? Do they have alt text, and does that alt text have keywords in it? And if you don't have any images, why not? Does it have videos? If so, are they embedded via YouTube or Vimeo, or are they uploaded to the CMS? If you don't have any videos, could you create one? Is there schema markup? I'm pretty sure most CMSs natively publish article schema for all blog posts. You should definitely have it on all of your blog posts. If it's a news type post, you can add the news article schema. How-to articles, you should add the how-to schema, obviously. FAQ page, if it has an FAQ section like at the bottom or anywhere in there, you should obviously add the FAQ page schema as well, right? The more information you can give to Google about your blog, the better off you're going to be, okay? And there's tons of other schema, right? I mean, there are literally hundreds of types of schema, so you can get creative depending on the type of content you're publishing. I'm not going to run through the whole schema database here, but if you have questions, there are tons of Shopify communities and like just forums out there on schema, right? And there's tons of free tools that can help you set up the schema yourself, so don't worry about that. Okay, search intent. So this is not so much just looking at the content and knowing if you match search intent. What you'll actually have to do is go back and look at the top 3 to 5 results to answer these questions. Okay, so let's say you wrote a blog 6 months ago, and you did in fact check the search intent there then when you wrote it, and you aligned your content with the search intent. But now 6 months later, Google has decided the search intent for that particular keyword has maybe changed, right? So search intent can change over time. So maybe what you wrote 6 months ago, though it still is accurate, does not meet the search intent of a user now. And so that's why, it maybe was in position, maybe it was on page 1 before a few months ago, and now it's not, right? So if that's the case, you need to go back and update the search intent. Now, the way to do that, there's definitely nuances to search intent, but basically like kind of the framework we suggest to use here is, does your content fit under one of the 4 main types of search intent, right? So there's informational, navigational, transactional, and commercial. I'm going to drop another video about these 4 types of search intent. I actually think there's a YouTube short I have out there somewhere that has these, but I'm going to make a more in-depth video on this as well. Did you use the same or similar content format? Okay, so listicle, how to, best of, X versus Y. Obviously, there's other types of content formats out there. These are just some of the most popular for blog content. Are you missing any important information that the top results mention, right? So if the top 3 results mention, X, Y, Z, and you only mention X, well, clearly you're missing Y and Z. So that's information that needs to be in your article. Otherwise, you're not seen as credible or trustworthy as those other top 3 sites, okay? Other thing, are you competing against medical journals, news publications, or other high authority publishing sites? Not impossible to outrank these types of sites, but if you're not seeming to get onto page 1 or anywhere near page 1, I would probably consider repurposing the content to serve a less competitive keyword. All right, like if you're competing against like Healthline and PubMed, it's going to take a lot of topical authority and a lot of links essentially to outrank them. Now, if that's like your money keyword, your dream keyword, go for it, right? If it's just a blog that helps you build topical authority, like a singular blog that helps you build topical authority, I'd probably recommend against it. And like I said, repurposing it for a lower competition keyword, okay? Or you could repurpose it as a guest post, right? Like if it's like just not performing well at all, you could use it as a guest post. You still earn a link to your site. You could go build links to that. Introduction paragraph. Again, we already talked about the target keyword location, but is your target keyword in the introduction paragraph? It absolutely should be there once, if not more. Does it address the target audience's pain points? Does it introduce the main topics, points that you'll cover in the blog? And does it have a clear call to action to keep reading, right? If you pay attention to like your bounce rate ever, and it's super low on like a particular blog, I mean, it's a very good chance it's to do with either the intro paragraph or the content layout, right? So making sure you target all these. I'll give you a framework later on about essentially the framework we use to write intro paragraphs, okay? And then conclusion paragraph. Did you recap the main points? So basically each of your H2s would be considered the main points. And did you provide logical next steps or a call to action? You know, if you're an e-com brand, this could be, shopping your products, subscribing to your newsletter, whatever the case may be, okay? All right, so that's the on-page checklist. You should run through this first, which I'm gonna kind of show you here, basically how to address each of these checkpoints here. And then we'll get into a further Search Console kind of trick to update your content, all right? So this process can occur in phases or all at once. It's really up to you. It's going to be a judgment call on your end, right? So if you're nowhere near page 1, and I say that is like position 20 or more, so you're on page 3 or worse, I'd probably recommend a major overhaul for each blog post. And the reason being is you're on page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No one is seeing your content anyways, so you might as well just overhaul it and take another crack at it. And I say that because, you really got nothing to lose on page 3 or worse. Like, it's not hard to get to position 30, for example. So if you overhaul it and somehow it's now worse than it was before, you can revert it and get back to 30, and you won't have really gained or lost anything in terms of traffic or money, okay? So, like I said, it's simply just not good enough yet if it's not in the top 20, and really, top 3 is where you're starting to make money. So obviously it could be in the top 20 and not be good enough, but again. So maybe you missed search intent, maybe you don't have enough links, or one of 100 other possibilities. But like I said, since you're nowhere near page 1, you don't have a lot to lose. You can make more substantial changes to your content without risking, a major loss in traffic or rankings or money or anything like that. Okay. If you're on the bottom of page 1, top of page 2, you've definitely done quite a bit of work, and your blog is in relatively good shape. So you've done quite a bit to get there. So you don't want to set yourself back by completely overhauling the blog post. What I would do is instead start with 1 to 2 sets of changes, wait a few days and see how Search Console and analytics and the rankings change, and then progress or revert as needed, right? So, if you make changes and the ranking goes up 1, or, you get more impressions all of a sudden or more clicks or whatever the case may be, you're heading in the right direction. You can make a few more incremental changes. If you make 1 or 2 changes, like maybe you change the meta title or you change, your intro paragraph, right? And you start to slide down a little bit, well, revert them and then try again, right? So I pretty much copied the 36-point checklist we just ran through. I'm going to pretty much break down how each of those points now needs to be addressed, okay? So like I said, this is the standard on-page checklist, again, we just touched. So your target keyword needs to be in every single one of these locations, okay? There is no excuse not to do this. It's that simple, right? Like if you can't fit it in your meta title or for example, like your URL slug, like I don't know what to tell you, okay? It simply has to be there. Same with your intro paragraph, conclusion paragraph, all of that stuff, okay? Word count, I kind of covered this earlier. Take a quick average of the top 5 and see where you're at. If you're within 200 words either way, you're generally okay. If you're below, obviously add enough content to hit that plus or minus 200 range. If you're above, like if you're way above, like I think I used the example earlier of 1,000 and 1,500 words. Like if you wrote 3,000 words and you're not anywhere near the top 10 or 20, you're going to need to cut some irrelevant information out, because clearly you've got it about 1,000 to 1,500 words that Google apparently does not care about. Okay, so I don't like to remove entire sections of content unless they're completely irrelevant, but you're going to need to trim it down quite a bit. Okay. Links. So again, same thing, copy and paste it here. Crawl your site and find out how many internal links and backlinks are pointing to the page. If it's less than 3 internal links or backlinks, really you're going to need more. 1 backlink won't cut it, just like 1 internal link won't cut it. Again, the exact number will depend on how big your site is. If you're brand new, obviously you don't have a lot of content out there, and it's going to be hard to build a ton of internal links. And if you don't have the budget or manpower essentially to build backlinks, you might not have a lot of links either. Okay, but you should aim for at least 4 to 5 internal links in most cases. And again, I mentioned this earlier, kind of off the PubMed/Healthline example. If this is one of your only posts on the topic, you're not going to have enough topical authority to win this SERP anyway. So all you need to do is build clusters of closely related content and link appropriately. Okay. There's no maximum amount of internal links or backlinks that should point to a particular blog. Generally speaking, more links equals higher rankings, right? As long as they're high quality, both internal links and backlinks, right? Like if you're building spammy Fiverr backlinks and you build 1,000 of them, you actually might do more harm than good to your own page. So important thing here is quality, right? Not quantity. You can use Ahrefs or Google operators to identify internal link opportunities. Like I said, the Ahrefs one is okay, but if it's crawling customer reviews or pages that have no relevance to the cluster, it can be a bit problematic. It's a good starting point. Gives you an idea of kind of where the opportunities may lie, and you can crawl around your site and figure out there. The Google operator method is a bit slower, but it's far more accurate in terms of sorting through the customer review data. So basically what you're going to do is use an operator to identify mentions of a keyword on your website. Then you can go to that page, build a link to the target page, which is the underperforming or old page in this case, using the anchor text that you just searched for with the operator. Okay. So here's the operator. It is literally just insight.com or insight:/yourdomain.com and then keyword. So just replace yourdomain.com with your actual website and keyword with your target keyword, right? Click through each of the results. Obviously figure out if that internal link is even going to be valuable based on the relevance of that page within the cluster, and then build your internal links as needed. Okay. Do they add to the content value? Images. So they add the content value. Do they distract? Do they have optimized alt text? If you don't have any images, why not? If you're a D2C brand, there's no excuse for not having images on your blog. You can recycle social media images, use UGC content, set up a lifestyle shoot, or even use Midjourney. Salma on Twitter, I will update this with her actual username. I meant to do this before I recorded, but clearly I forgot. But she's a wizard with Midjourney. She builds incredible images for D2C brands, so hit her up if you're struggling to get image content. Okay. Videos. Video content is crushing in SERPs lately. If you're a one-person team, especially a content site owner or operator, videos are going to be hard to produce, right? No doubt about it. But if you have relevant video content, you should add it to the blog. It will always, obviously if the video is good, it will always provide the user more value, and Google is rewarding video content more and more lately. Also, you should be embedding it via YouTube or Vimeo. It should be YouTube. No one uses Vimeo comparatively to how many people use YouTube. You should never embed it to the CMS, simply for the sake of page speed and general UX, plus your YouTube channel will get far more visibility, obviously if you embed it that way, right? That's that. Schema. So most D2C brands have basic schema set up, organization, product, associated info like that. They lack on blog schema, and that's, it's common, right? It's not inherently a good or bad thing. It's just common, okay? This is a low-hanging fruit, right? Especially with all of the updates lately in SERPs. You need to be providing Google as much information as you can about one particular blog, right? So this is a low-hanging fruit, and I guarantee you your competitors are not doing it. So if you're doing it, you're already putting yourself in a better spot to beat them out, okay? It's super easy to implement and can easily bump you up 1 or 2 spots in certain niches, so you should add as much relevant schema as possible to your blog post, okay? Search intent. So you should have identified search intent earlier on when you first wrote the blog, but like I said, it can change over time, so you're gonna have to do it again. But really, you should, general rule of thumb, you should be identifying search intent when you do your keyword research, not when you start drafting a blog, okay? So generally speaking, blog posts are meant for middle and top of funnel users. This is the case with D2C brands or niche sites, things like that. But if you're running if you run an affiliate site, right, you can obviously run bottom of funnel. You can build bottom of funnel blogs that have affiliate links, right? So like I said, the search intent, if you're a D2C brand or a niche site owner, a lot of your blog content will be middle top of funnel, meaning it's going to be informational or transactional in intent. Okay, so best X product, how to something, what is something, or benefits of something, right? Now onto the content format. We talked about listicles, how-tos, X versus Y. Most of the top 10 results will have a similar format. That's almost always the case on pretty competitive keywords. You're really only concerned about the top 3. Similar to the word count example, if the top 3 are listicles and numbers and results 4 through 10 are how-to results, you should obviously create a listicle, right? Like if you're happy to just be on page 1, like write a how-to blog, but that's not going to make you money, right? You need to be in the top 3. That is what I keep saying, okay? So if you want to dominate your competitors in the number 1 spot, you need to make a damn listicle, okay? Are you missing any important information that the top results mention? This should go without saying. Like I said, if your competitors write about X, Y, Z, and you only write about X, like their content's better. I mean, that's just the case, right? It needs to be in your content unless you are 100% certain that Y and Z, for example, are inaccurate or outdated, okay? If you're competing against medical journals, news publications, or whatever, like I said, I don't want to discourage you, but if the top 10 results are like Healthline, PubMed, CNN, AP News, you're going to need to invest substantial time and money into cracking the top 10 results. Instead, I would recommend pivoting your content to serve a less competitive SERP or republishing that content as a guest post, for example, to earn a backlink to your site. If you are committed to winning this particular SERP, say it's your number 1 priority, like money keyword, you'll need to amass more topical authority, which means far more publishing, and spend tens of thousands of dollars on backlinks. All right, and I do wish you the best of luck if that's the case. Okay. Introduction paragraph. So this is the basic framework I use for blog intros. I always write blog introduction paragraphs last. I always start with the first H2, work my way down. Then I dig to the conclusion because I'm already in that flow, and then I come back up to the intro. My last video actually was kind of talking about this, and I reiterated that basically the introduction should be written last. Okay. Basically here, what I like to do is address the most important pain points, just 1 or 2 of them, either with a sentence or a question. Tell them what they're going to learn. So basically what you can do here is literally just take your H2s and go down into a series, take them and convert them into a series format, right? So you're going to learn X, Y, and Z, okay? Maybe don't just say you're going to learn, like find a more creative, engaging way to say that, but that's it. And then finish with a clear call to action so they actually read past the introduction paragraph and then past the first 100 words, okay? You can also use a table of contents right after the introduction paragraph as well. That massively can boost, like UX signals, and it'll probably decrease your bounce rate. You know, people, instead of having to scroll through and find their H2s, if you just give them links to click to the H2s, like good chance they're going to find the information they're looking for faster, right? Conclusion paragraph. Don't overthink this, okay? People are ready to move on and take action. You don't need to recap the entire article. Just literally let them go. Like give them a call to action to let them get on to their next thing, okay? We usually limit conclusions to like 3 to 5 sentences. Like I said, there's nothing drawn out about it. Just wrap it up and get on with it, okay? Like I said, so similar to intro, we use a framework for the conclusion paragraph. So I call the first sentence in a conclusion paragraph like a deep breath sentence. Really much the thing is you need to pull them out and help them zoom out, okay? So if they just read a 2,000 word blog, like if they manage to read all of it, they're hyper focused on the details, right? Like their mind is in a million places trying to digest the information they just consumed. What are they going to do with that information? You know, all that good stuff. You need to help them zoom out so they can quickly and easily digest everything they've just read. You can use basic templates for this, like to start your conclusion paragraph with like in conclusion or now that. We never use these. We never use like anything like in conclusion or now that. We also never use an H2 for like conclusion or final thoughts. You should be more creative, totally up to you. But like really that's the whole point. Like I just use these examples because it kind of helps, visualize that like zooming out process, right? Recap the main points. Again, just use the H2s in 1 or 2 sentences, do it very quickly, then offer logical next steps. Shop your products, subscribe to the newsletter, check out our guide on X, right? Whatever the case may be, okay? So that's that. That's the on-page checklist. Now, once you've done all that, because those are going to be the biggest wins if you, for example, only taking care of 20 of the 35 on-page checklists, like those are going to get you far bigger wins than this next step. But if you checked all those boxes and you still can't crack on to the top page, here's what we're going to do with Search Console to get quicker wins, okay? So I actually just had this conversation with a brand we just started working with, and I thought it'd be a good addition to this guide. We've been doing this process forever, but kind of the logic behind it, I guess. I knew the logic, but I don't think I was essentially explaining it clearly enough. So basically what we did, we onboarded this new brand. We identified a couple of blogs that were underperforming or old, but were really important to the clusters we were going to build. Okay, so we identified 5 to 10 pages that had high impressions and low clicks in Search Console, just as I showed you guys earlier on in this guide. So blog by blog, we essentially used Search Console to determine which queries and keywords were driving impressions for these pages. We went back through each of the blogs and added these keywords into the content, meta title, intro paragraph, alt text, and throughout the content, just like I just walked you through. And I'll show you the process in a minute, but basically the question from the brand owner was, why would you optimize the blog for those keywords if they aren't the exact keyword we tried to target? So I answered him in the case of one particular blog, which we just happened to be speaking about on Zoom when we were having the conversation. But Google has, basically what I said was, Google has determined that this blog isn't the best result for the target keyword that you crafted it for, which is why it has only a couple impressions and doesn't rank anywhere near page 1. However, Google has decided that it is better suited for these particular queries, the ones I mentioned in Search Console, which are oftentimes very similar, like almost adjacent keywords to the target, right? So we add a few mentions of those high impression and low click keywords to the content. There's a high likelihood that it will start to receive both more clicks, which is obviously traffic, and impressions, right? So it's going to improve by adding those queries into the content, right? So basically, we're nowhere near ranking for the highly competitive target keyword that's going to drive, thousands of visitors to our site if we get on page 1, but we're really close, or we're in theory very close to lower competition, lower volume keywords, which are in any case very similar to the target keyword. Okay, so if we can win the SERP for the smaller keywords, we'll start driving actual traffic sooner, and then we can build trust and authority with Google over time, even if it's not for the originally intended target keyword. Over time, that trust will grow to a point where we can adjust the content over time and pursue the original target keyword. Make sense? Okay, so back in the Search Console, you're going to copy the first URL from the list we created earlier, right? So again, these are blogs that have less than 100 clicks over the last 6 months and are sorted by impressions high to low. So in Google Search Console, navigate back to performance, then search results, keep the date range at 6 months, just as we did earlier. You probably have this tab open, so just flipping back to that tab should be easy enough. Now we're going to go from the Pages tab to the Queries tab. So we have a list of all the queries that this particular page has received. Oh, sorry, skip a step here. So click plus new up here, and you're going to paste the URL, the top URL, in the dropdown, and you're going to select exact URL and then click apply. So what we're looking at here is a list of all the queries that this particular page has received clicks and impressions for the last 6 months. Okay. So you can see here, my date range here is the last 6 months. Page is obviously blacked out, and then here's the queries, right? And you can see it's sorted high to low by impressions. So this one has 2,348 impressions and only 2 clicks in the last 6 months. So obviously it's pretty bad. So this is one we updated, right? So like I said, we don't need to add a filter like we did with our pages earlier because we're taking the URLs directly from a filter we already set that had less than 100 clicks. You may need to remove branded queries if any are present. You can do either of these with regular expressions or a queries not containing filter if it's only like one. So obviously you want to get rid of your brand name, or like if you ran Google ads, or like you had a big email push to this blog, like someone could be searching for like blog title brand name. Like you obviously don't want those queries in there because Google is going to, no matter how much you optimize it, Google is going to find that page, right? So you don't need to optimize it for your own brand. Okay. So view the keywords row by row. So when I say row by row, I mean like the row 1, 2, like view the queries, keywords row by row. Okay. And go back through your content and see if those exact keywords are present in your content. If they're not, add them. Okay. Again, H2, image alt text in the body content, whatever the case may be. This is pretty much a more accurate version of what we touched on in Ahrefs. So like I said, in Ahrefs, it'll show you like a keyword ranks in position 62. Obviously, if it's relevant enough to your blog, you should add it to the content. If not, don't. But the main difference is that GSC data is far more accurate than Ahrefs, and it'll provide you far more keywords to incorporate, right? Like Ahrefs is only going to show you keywords that are potentially getting any traffic, whereas Search Console has tracked every single mention of that keyword since you set up Search Console. So it's going to give you a longer list of keywords. Basically what it is, and I think I actually mentioned this later on, this is like a post-publishing version of what you do with SERP or SEO, right? So like I said, I think the example I used earlier was like when to take protein powder after a workout, right? Like when to take protein powder after a workout, like I think the example I used earlier was like a keyword, like it could be impression like, should I take protein within 30 minutes of working out? Or should I take it within 60 minutes of working out, right? Like if you're looking at Surfer SEO, Surfer SEO is probably going to suggest to you to use words like hours and minutes like 2 or 3 times, right? And that's essentially what we're doing. We're just on the post-publishing end of it, right? Whereas Surfer, you're in theory using it when you're drafting your content, okay? Now, with keywords, like I said, as you move row by row, you should just Control F on your draft or like on the live website, whatever the blog may be on. Just Control F and copy that keyword over and search for it, right? If you see it, if you don't see it, add it somewhere relevant. And if you do see it and it's, you know, it's present like at least once or twice, but it's not receiving a lot of little clicks, add it to a more important place. So basically like your H1 and your meta title have far more weight than like if a word is in your meta title or in your H1, which is your blog title, it has far more weight than a word just in like your introduction paragraph or like somewhere in the body content, right? So if you really want to rank for another keyword, you need to move it to a more important spot. So like I said, if it's in the content at least twice and it's getting a lot of impressions but low clicks, you should try to find a way to incorporate it into a more prioritized position, being the meta title and H2 and H3 or high up in the body content, okay? Many of these keywords would be close variations of one another. You should still add each of them as long as they fit naturally and make sense within your content. If you have to reword a few things to fit them in, totally fine, right? Again, you're already in position, 20 or up. So, you rewording like 2 or 3 sentences to accommodate a new keyword, totally fine. Again, it's not going to really harm you. And if it does, you can just revert the changes. In most cases, it's probably going to help you though by adding these other like very adjacent mentioned keywords in here, okay? Like I said, this is a post-publishing version of what Surfer SEO and other on-page tools do. You're pretty much just adding close variations of your target keyword to improve Google's understanding of the content. It's a little bit of an outdated term now, but like semantic keywords is basically what you're doing here. Okay, so like I kind of touched on earlier, there are really 2 paths you can take with this process. It will largely depend on your current rankings and future goals. So if you're in the top 20 spots, this is path 1. Okay, so you're in positions between 1 and 20, but if you're up, you shouldn't be updating anything in position 1 right now. So really you're in like positions 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 20. I recommend starting with a 36-point checklist, okay? If you only have 20 of the 36 boxes checked, obviously there's plenty of room for improvement. Checking all 36 of those boxes is going to move you up substantially. If you have 33 of the 36 checked, those final 2 could be the difference between page 1 and page 2 in some cases, right? So if you're on, let's say, position 11 and you add a video where you update your result text, like maybe you get into position 10 and now you're on page 1, right? More specific guidelines. In a perfect world, you change one thing and determine if that was a positive or negative reaction, right? That's how testing works, isolating a single variable. With a 36-point checklist to run through, it'll take forever to test each of those individually. And I'm a little bit biased, but I tend to live by the motto of move fast and break things. With that being said, I'm not reckless, okay? I'm not going to change all 36 things at once just to move up ranking, right? So if you're in the top 3 to 5 spots, looking to move up 1 spot, I'd recommend changing one thing at a time. If you're in the 3 to 5 spot, probably what I'd first start with is your meta title and your intro paragraph, and potentially the blog title. If there's a better way to essentially use your keywords in the blog title, right? From positions 5 to 10, you can implement 2 to 3 of these changes at once without having a ton of volatility. Wait a few days to see how they react. Go from there. If you're in positions 10 to 15, you can make a few more changes, maybe 3 to 5 changes at once, and then again evaluate and see what happens. Positions 15 and up, again, you're not really getting any traffic in position 15, so you can make like 5 changes at a time and then evaluate from there. Eventually, you want to check all 36 boxes. Now, I know if you're thinking back, you're probably the biggest one, like especially for me, and the hardest one to get is video content, right? Like it's so much more intensive to just produce a video than it is to just write a blog, right? But if you check all 35 and the video is the 36th one, like you're still in a pretty good spot. But again, I recommend doing it in stages so that you can isolate the changes and see which ones have the biggest effect, right? If you have like 15 of these boxes checked currently and you go and update all 19 of them, like, yeah, you might move up, or you're probably going to move up. But it'd be more helpful to know like what exactly you changed to help, right? And again, like if you're just changing one metric, like one aspect at a time, then you'll have far more knowledge about what is actually impacting it and driving the most growth. But if you don't want to wait 36 weeks to find out what it is, then you're gonna have to make a few more changes than one at a time. Okay. Again, general rules of thumb here. You'll have to make judgment calls based on your website brand, niche competitors, risk aversion, and your goals, right? Once you've checked every box on the checklist, start supplementing your content with those keywords queries that you pulled from GSC, which was, this process I used. I just showed you this one, right? Okay. So run through the checklist and then do the Search Console stuff, okay? Path 2. If you're not in the top 20 spots, respectfully, your blog is not helping you out very much, right? It's not getting any traffic. You know that, which is probably why you're watching this video, okay? In one sitting, you should implement all the changes needed to check each of the 36 boxes. Then you should refresh the content with the queries and keywords from GSC. If you do it well, very, very likely you'll enter the top 20 to 30 spots over the course of the next few days and weeks, okay? If not, if you somehow regress, you're not really much worse off. Like I said, if you're in if you're on page 3 or worse, nobody was seeing it anyway, so it won't really matter if it's on page 6 either, okay? If it slides backwards somehow, revert back to the original version and then proceed in a segmented manner, proceed in a segmented manner, make two or three changes, wait a week, make 2 or 3 more, wait another week, and then go from there, right? And then you can kind of, more gradually improve that. Any questions on this, drop me a DM on Twitter at Cromwell or drop a message in the comments and I will get back to you.